Good afternoon, my little potato chips. Wee Paddy from across the shuck. And this is the final roundup and a discussion about the Benny's clip, which is going to be released on Friday from Fraymar Knives here in the UK and your local dealers around the world. It's 1900 on Friday night. Go on the internet at fraymarknives.co.uk. Easy to find. Just get on the computer, find out, be there in time, because this is going to be very popular. And the reason it's going to be very popular is probably twofold. One, it's a pattern that nearly every slip joint collector likes, but even non-slip joint collectors like a Lanny's clip. And this is a Lanny's clip. I haven't got one. I really wish I had. This is a collaboration one that Tony Bowes done with Case. And for years was one of their biggest sellers, and still is to this day. Every time a Lanny's clip comes out, they're snapped up, and no matter who makes them, and no matter what the price range is, that shape, that generic sort of a knife that you can get in your hand, feel comfortable, do as much work as you like, it's just popular. And if you haven't had that feeling, it is not, well, let's be honest with you, it's very easy to get one that looks like it. Now, it'll never be this one because this has Tony Bowes' genetics all the way through it. He used to go to Case. He trained their custom makers to make this one. This wasn't just made on the normal run. He trained them to do that. But other companies have made similar copies. Sometimes they're just exactly the same of the Lanny's clip. And I explained in my last video about that's how a custom maker got his name back in the 80s. And 90s and the early 2000s, so more the early 2000s than anywhere else, that if you could make a good Lanny's clip, you were set up for, a good ride in this custom. It must be a nightmare to be in, but in this custom maker's world. But so many other companies have made them. And I want to show today that you can, for very little money, get an example, and a blooming good example, of a Lanny's clip. And why I haven't done this before, I don't know. This is my wife's little thing you do for, not a laptop, whatever they're called. Now, this is a Lanny's clip. And here's one that I've shown before on my channel that maybe people who are not into the knife, into the slip joint world, sort of maybe let miss a little bit. This is from Twisted Assisted. They had this made, and they just called this their traditional knife because there's nothing says traditional more to me than a Lanny's clip. And here it is. This is their traditional knife, and that is the Lanny's clip, the Case Bowes Lanny's clip. Look at the similarities in this knife. It has got that beautiful shape with the swollen end, which makes it so comfortable in hand. This one even has a rat's tail bolster, the same as this. It's a bit thinner, but it's a thicker. A rat's tail bolster is just a thinner line across that's been extended on this rat's tail, and this one has a close resemblance to it. Everything is a resemblance. This one has a lanyard hole, the Lanny's clip doesn't, so there's always going to be difference. This has a long pull instead of the typical nail nick, but you can see the shape of the blade. It's absolutely beautiful. It has a clip the same, again, not exactly the same, but very, very similar to the Lanny's clip. It's a sabre grind, the same as. This one is a flat grind, or maybe just a slight hollow. Excuse me, I probably think it's more flat than anything else. But very, very similar. You can get this knife for, I believe it's about £40 on Twisted Assisted. I'll leave theirs down below in the description. Still available. What a beautiful knife. And they have different handle materials that you can get in this. This is in carbon fibre. I think it's a beautiful example of a similar Lanny's clip. They call it the traditional knife, but a lot of other knife makers, maybe who don't make as many, have called theirs Lanny's clips. But most people, it's a derivative of. And the one that we're going to talk about mostly today is the Benny's clip, which was designed from head to toe from Ben Belkin, who's the owner of Jack Wolf Knives. And this is it. If you haven't seen the other video, I can hear the gasp, because that is a beautiful interpretation of a Lanny's clip. It's not a Lanny's clip, but it's an interpretation. It's maybe a little bit of a longer bolster. It's lined. It's pinched at the top, much the same as the Lanny's clip. Well, not pinched. It swoops down, which is great if you want to get this sort of grip on your knife, which is a grip I use an awful lot, where you just pinch down here. And because of that slope, it makes your fingers comfortable and secure. But this is a beautiful interpretation. You can see the end is the same. The bolster's something similar. But you can see that the clip on this one is a bit longer. And what that enables this one, because it's longer, when you come up here, it comes up into a more broader curve up to the line of it. I'm not doing really good at this. Oh, I'm so bad. But it gives you a lovely piece of belly, a longer, wider belly up into the point of the clip is higher than on this. The swedges are, again, this one, it looks to me as I'm looking at it a little bit longer, but it has the lovely nail nick here. I just think it's fantastic. And if you look, it's nearly got exactly the same termination that Ben has on all his knives. I just think it's so similar, but it's not the same. It's not a copy. It's Ben had to redesign, because everything has been redesigned, but it's been redesigned in that image of a Lanny's clip. It's not exactly the same, and that's what you want. You want somebody to not just copy something. There has to be differences, and this has them differences. This is the most beautiful, comfortable hand for whatever size hand you have. I have a large hand, but an extra large. Look at that. You have plenty of room on here. This is a sturdy work knife, and it's a good, strong, lovely, strong. You've heard this over and over again. It's just beautiful. It really is. And it all comes from that man, Tony Bowes, who reinvented this from old patterns. He used to bring an awful lot of knives back from old patterns, and this is probably his most famous one. And it's really difficult to get it right. It's not easy to get it right. And those boys back in the day, some of the custom makers could not just manage it quite well. So it's not an easy knife to redesign, and Ben has redesigned it. This is modern. This is screwed. This is titanium. This is M390. This is more probably, I would think this was probably ATS steel, which he used a lot of. Went on then after that to 154 cm, did case with Tony Bowes knives. But again, this is why this is an absolutely beautiful knife. It's a work knife. It can be dressy. It looks dressy when it's closed with these beautiful handles. This is the Jungle. They do an Arctic, and they do a couple of other covers for this knife. It's just a matter of getting on the site and going and seeing what they have left at the time when you go on. But don't miss out. These are just a beautifully designed. It's just a lovely knife. Now this is this is just under 4 inches. The Tony Bowes one that was about 4 1/8 long, or 4, maybe even 4 1/4. Do you know what I mean? It was a big knife. This is about 4 inches, just under 4 inches, which I think is perfect, because it gives so many people's grips the ability to use this knife as a hard work. It's a hard use knife. If that's what you want it for, it's a hard use knife. It's perfectly designed for it. With M390, it's a perfect hard use knife, which will give you longevity in the cutting and just the power and the strength of an M390 blade with this carbon fiber titanium. Look at that, beautiful. The bolster and the liners are all titanium, one piece. Just gives it so much more rigidity. The fit and finish is just absolutely stunning. And I keep saying that, but they are. And I have to keep saying it because it's an expensive knife. Whereas this is £40, and it is, it's an absolutely smashing knife. There's nothing wrong with this knife whatsoever. It's absolutely lovely. I still love the Twisted Assisted. But this is an expensive knife with much higher grade of handles. The precision in this is probably way above, not way above. The precision in this is just faultless, absolutely faultless. I have a Tony Bowes knife, a Tony Bowes case knife, which I treasure. But Tony Bowes' knives are up in the 1,000 plus. They're not in my range. So if I could ever possibly get one, the case one like this, I would die for. I would sell so many knives just to get this. But it is a gorgeous, gorgeous knife. This, you'll not be sorry you've ordered this. Trust me. There's nothing I can find. I can't find fault. If there is fault, if there is a difference between maybe this and this, there's big difference in material and the precision of these two knives. Big difference. But this is a great knife. But these are more for collectors, people who can afford a high-end knife. And let's be honest, you have to be able to afford it. I hope people have saved up and been waiting for this, because I'm sure they have, because this is probably one of the most looked forward to model that I think a lot of people will gravitate towards. I really wouldn't hang about on Friday night. Just get in there and get your order as soon as you can. I think these will sell out immediately. I don't think there'll be any left by the time Friday night's over, or very few. So there it is, the Benny clip. I'm going to give you some other I just felt like talking a wee bit more about the Lanny's clip. This is a perfect example. But here's some other ones. This is the variation you can get. This is a custom knife. In that Lanny's clip shape, this is a bit of a snub nose, whereas this is as well compared to the original. If you see that, that's a more pointed, a bit snubby, and this bottom one is a real just snub nose. But it's in that shape of the Lanny's clip, that shape that gives your hand such a lovely, strong feeling. So you can get all sorts. Here, let's go down down the market again. This is a Shatton Morgan, which you can get for under £100 if you go searching for them. Obviously, they're not made anymore. This was made by Queen. This is a beautiful, in that shape, although maybe this is more saddle horn, but I think it's very, very similar to the Tony Bowes, very similar. This, I hate this nail nick up here, but it is a swedge that runs around the back of it. You see it on that side. It's a lovely swedge. Looks very similar to that in its shape and style. This is more in that blade shape than the Benny's clip is, because this is, to me, a little bit longer, elongated, which makes it beautiful. But there you go. So there's the Shatton Morgan. There's so many companies that have made knives on the back of this Lanny's clip that have made great sellers. Here's another knife in my collection that is just exactly the same size as it. It's got an absolutely stunning clip point, and this is the GEC number 86 pattern. So you can see they have the swedge is not as deep, but there is a swedge that runs from here all the way down. The blade length is exactly the same. The handle length is near enough exactly the same. Beautiful knives, but this one doesn't have that turn down. For me, this, if you want work, this is the one I'll be taking, because the grip this is a great grip. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's still quite narrow for heavy work. You can do it all day long. You can do it. Trust me. I have used this, but you can see the difference when you put them this way. You can see that more bulbous end, which is something I do like in my knives. This is a full flat grind, but very similar in shape. So a lot of knives have sort of come from that Lanny's clip pattern. Look, slip joints do tend to mimic other ones, and then another pattern will come out of it. It's been just a generational thing. Everybody adds a wee bit to a knife, and they change to a shape that then stays defined for quite a while. But this, to me, is the new modern Lanny's clip, but it's a Benny's clip. It's Ben's one in his own right, in his own name, that looks every bit as beautiful. I would love it in bone, but at the minute that's not possible. So this is just beautiful. Good Irish green camouflage. Get out there amongst the cows. An absolutely beautiful knife. I hope those who want it get it. And if you don't, it's a Grail knife that you can wait until maybe there's a time in your life, much like my own, where I was able to afford more expensive knives. And that's okay too, because when you've got so many different patterns, which I've showed you here, that are similar, you're not stuck for something you can buy. This is not a, you don't buy that, you don't buy anything. There is plenty out there. And for about 40 quid, look at that. Is that not, I mean, that's a beautiful knife. So there's knives out there, and that's what I want to get across. Don't be sort of bitter, sad, whatever you want. Don't be worried that you can't afford the higher end ones. I can't afford this, but I can afford, this is something that's within my ability to save and buy. It's not something I would buy lightly, but it's within my limit to buy and save. Here's one for those who maybe don't have that sort of money, but want a knife in that pattern. You know, that is so close. But it's just a beautiful knife to hold and work. And this is in VG10 for 40 quid. Let me tell you, this M390, it's just amazing. It's about 10 thousandths behind the edge, which is just a slicing machine, a working machine. It really is. That is another art form in itself, is doing these hollow grinds. That's a real craftsman's trade. So there you go. I'll leave that sitting there as I go. But I hope you get in on it. It's tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, 1900 on the Frame Our Knives, which is up there. But I'll leave the description for Frame Our Knives. And I'll leave the description for Twisted Assisted. These are available on the site. So if you can't get one of these or one of them, you can get one of them. There you go, folks. Take care. Ben, thank you very much for sending this to me. Really appreciate it. I can't make my mind up which one I like better, this one or the K9. I thought I was going to be able to give you a definitive answer. I don't have it yet. The K9 I just got back yesterday from Justin, and oh boy, I'd forgotten in a week just how much I love this. But between them two, it's somewhere between those two. I haven't made my decision yet. Take care, everybody. Paddy's away. Thanks very much for watching.